The moment Marcus Chen opened his eyes at 2:17 a.m., he knew something was wrong. Not because of the phone vibrating insistently on his nightstand. That happened often enough in his line of work. No, it was the name glowing on the screen that made his heart sink. Diane Rothwell, his boss. The woman who'd made his life a calculated hell for the past 2 years. The elegant, terrifying CEO of Rothwell Strategic Solutions who wore power suits like armor and wielded silence like a weapon. The same woman who'd denied his request to leave early for Zara's school play 3 weeks ago, who'd made him rewrite reports on Sunday mornings, who looked at him sometimes like his very existence was a personal affront. Marcus stared at the phone, his thumb hovering over the red decline button. Every rational part of his brain screamed to let it go to voicemail. He'd worked a 12-hour day. His daughter was asleep down the hall. Whatever crisis Diane Rothwell had at 2 a.m. on a Thursday could wait until morning. The phone stopped ringing. Marcus exhaled, settling back into his pillow. Then it started again. Diane Rothwell. His jaw tightened. This was exactly the kind of thing she did. The late-night calls, the weekend emails, the constant invasions into the life he was trying so hard to build for himself and Zara after everything had fallen apart. After Simone had walked out the door 2 years ago, saying she wasn't cut out for motherhood, leaving him with a 7-year-old daughter and a mortgage he could barely afford on his coordinator's salary. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The third call came. This time, Marcus answered, ready to set a boundary he should have set months ago. "Ms. Rothwell, it's 2 in the morning. The sound that came through the phone stopped him cold. It wasn't the crisp, controlled voice he'd come to expect. It was raw, broken, the sound of someone trying to breathe through tears and failing. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I don't know who else." Marcus sat up, his anger dissolving into something else. Concern. Alarm. "Ms. Rothwell? Diane, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" "I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be alone tonight. Please. I know I have no right to ask, but please." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, his mind racing. This had to be some kind of mistake. Diane Rothwell didn't break down. She didn't ask for help. She certainly didn't call him in the middle of the night sounding like her world was ending. But he'd heard it. The desperation, the fear, the kind of pain that made you call the wrong person because calling no one felt worse. He thought about ignoring it, about rolling over and dealing with whatever fallout came tomorrow. She'd probably fire him anyway. She'd been looking for reasons since the day he'd started reporting to her directly. Then he thought about his grandmother, who'd raised him after his parents died when he was 10. The woman who'd taught him that character wasn't about how you treated people who could help you, but how you treated people when helping them cost you something. "Baby, we show up for people," she used to say, her deep brown hands gentle on his cheeks. "Not because they deserve it, but because that's who we are. You hear me?" Marcus pushed back his covers, his feet hitting the cold hardwood floor. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood outside Mrs. Patterson's door, his jacket pulled hastily over his t-shirt, his locks tied back in a messy bun. His neighbor, a retired black woman in her 60s who'd become something like family over the past 2 years, opened the door in her robe, taking one look at his face and nodding. "Emergency?" "Something like that. I'm sorry, Mrs. P. I know it's late." "Hush now." She waved him off, already reaching for her keys. "That baby can sleep here tonight. You go do what you need to do." "I left a note on Zara's nightstand in case she wakes up. School clothes are laid out. Lunch money's on the counter." "Marcus." Mrs. Patterson put a firm hand on his arm, her dark eyes steady. "I raised 4 children. I think I can handle one 9-year-old for a few hours. Go." As Marcus drove through Seattle's empty streets, the Space Needle lit up against the night sky, he wondered what the hell he was doing. He didn't even know where Diane lived. She'd never mentioned it, never shared anything personal in the 2 years he'd worked under her. All he knew was that she was rich, successful, and seemed to take particular pleasure in making his life difficult. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with an address in Queen Anne, the wealthy neighborhood overlooking the city. Of course, that's where she lived. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place with a doorman and monthly fees that probably exceeded Marcus's annual salary. He felt acutely aware of his worn Seahawks jacket and decade-old Camry as he pulled into the visitors' parking. The lobby was deserted except for a night security guard, a middle-aged Latino man who looked up from his desk with raised eyebrows. "I'm here to see Diane Rothwell," Marcus said, feeling ridiculous. "She called me. I work for her." The guard studied him for a long moment, then glanced at his computer screen. "Penthouse, elevator on the right. She cleared you to come up." As the elevator climbed, Marcus caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his brown eyes, his beard in need of a trim, his rich skin ashy from lack of sleep and too many missed meals. He looked like what he was, a man running on empty, held together by stubbornness and love for his daughter. What was he even going to say when he got up there? The elevator doors opened directly into Diane's penthouse. Marcus stepped out and stopped, his breath catching. The space was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture in shades of cream and gray, abstract art on the walls. But it felt cold, empty, like a magazine spread instead of a home. No photos, no personal touches, no warmth. And there, curled up on the white sofa facing the windows, was Diane Rothwell. She'd turned at the sound of the elevator, and Marcus barely recognized her. Her normally sleek, dark hair, always pressed straight and pulled into a severe bun, hung in its natural texture around her shoulders, curly and wild. Her face, usually made up with precise makeup that accentuated her sharp cheekbones and smooth brown skin, was bare and swollen from crying. She wore an oversized Howard University sweatshirt and leggings, no shoes, no jewelry. She looked young, vulnerable, completely unlike the woman who'd made him rewrite the quarterly report 6 times last month. "You came," she whispered, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You actually came." Marcus moved toward her slowly, the way you might approach a wounded animal. "You sounded like you needed someone." Diane laughed, a broken sound without humor. "I needed someone. That's rich. Do you know what I said to you last week, Marcus? When you asked to leave early for your daughter's parent-teacher conference?" Marcus remembered. The words had stung for days. If you wanted a job with flexible hours, you should have chosen a different career, or perhaps reconsidered having a child you couldn't properly prioritize around. "I remember," he said quietly. "I'm a terrible person." Diane wrapped her arms around herself. "A terrible, bitter, cruel person. And you should leave. You should turn around and go back to your daughter and forget I called." "Probably," Marcus agreed, surprising himself with his honesty. "But I'm not going to." He sat down on the opposite end of the sofa, maintaining distance. "Talk to me. What happened?" For a long moment, Diane just stared out at the city lights, her jaw working as if she were fighting with herself. Finally, she spoke. "It's been 5 years today. 5 years since my mother died." The words hung in the air between them. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and meant it. He knew that particular grief intimately. "She was everything to me." Diane's voice was barely audible. "After my father left when I was young, it was just us. She worked 3 jobs to put me through college. She was there when I started the company. She was—" Her voice broke. "She was supposed to be here." Marcus thought about his grandmother, about the hole her death had left in his world. "The anniversaries are the hardest." Diane nodded, wiping roughly at her face. "I usually keep myself busy on this day. Work late, take meetings, anything to avoid feeling it. But tonight—" She gestured around the empty apartment. Tonight, I just kept thinking about how alone I am, how I've pushed everyone away, how I've become this cold, angry woman my mother wouldn't even recognize." She turned to look at Marcus directly for the first time, her dark eyes rimmed with red. "Why did you come? After everything I've put you through, why are you sitting here?" Marcus considered the question. "My grandmother used to say that sometimes people are mean because they're in pain, and that the people who push hardest are usually the ones who need someone to push back, not with anger, but with kindness. Your grandmother sounds like she was wise." "She was." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "She also would have told me I'm a fool for coming here at 2 a.m., but," he shrugged, "she raised me to be a fool for the right reasons." Diane's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not," Marcus said honestly. "But you needed someone tonight, and I was in a position to show up. That's enough." They sat in silence for a while, the city lights twinkling below them. Marcus could see his reflection in the window, a black man in a worn jacket sitting next to a woman who could buy and sell him 100 times over. It should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt strangely natural. "Tell me about your daughter," Diane said suddenly. "Zara, right?" Marcus was surprised she remembered. "She's 9, smart as hell, creative, kind. She wants to be an animator when she grows up, makes these elaborate comic books about a superhero who can bring her drawings to life." For the first time that night, genuine warmth entered Diane's expression. "That's beautiful." "She's my whole world," Marcus said simply. "Everything I do is for her." "I know." Diane's voice was soft. "I see it in the way you talk about her, the way you've never missed a deadline even when I've made your life hell, because you need this job to take care of her." She looked down at her hands. "That's part of why I've been so hard on you." Marcus frowned. "I don't understand." "Because you have what I'll never have," Diane whispered. "A child who loves you, someone who needs you. I was pregnant once, 3 years ago. My husband and we'd been trying for years. When I finally got pregnant, I thought—" Her voice caught. "I thought everything would be okay, that we'd be a family." Marcus's chest tightened, sensing where this was going. "I lost the baby at 20 weeks, and then I lost my husband 6 months later. He said he couldn't handle my grief on top of his own, that I'd become someone he didn't recognize." Diane's hands clenched in her lap. "So I threw myself into work, built walls, made sure no one could ever hurt me again. And I took out my bitterness on people like you, people who reminded me of what I'd lost." The confession hung heavy in the air. Marcus felt a wave of compassion so strong it almost hurt. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it. No one should have to carry that alone." "I'm the one who should be sorry." Diane met his eyes. "I've been taking my pain out on you for 2 years, making you pay for having what I wanted. That's unforgivable." "Nothing's unforgivable," Marcus said, "not if you're willing to change." Diane studied him, something shifting in her expression. "You really believe that?" "I have to," Marcus said. "Otherwise, what's the point of any of this?" They talked for hours, about loss and loneliness and the walls people build to survive. Diane told him about her mother, a woman named Ruth who'd believed in second chances and always saw the best in people. Marcus told her about his grandmother, about Simone leaving, about the struggle of single parenthood and the constant fear that he wasn't enough. Somewhere around 4 a.m., Diane's eyes began to droop. The crying had exhausted her, and Marcus could see the weight of her grief settling into her bones. "You should sleep," he said gently. Diane nodded, but didn't move. "Will you—" She stopped, looking embarrassed. "Never mind. You should go." "What were you going to ask?" She bit her lip, looking so unlike the powerful CEO who commanded boardrooms. "Will you stay?" just until I fall asleep. I don't want to be alone when I close my eyes." Marcus should have said no, should have established a boundary, protected himself from whatever this was. Instead, he found himself nodding. "Okay, I'll stay." Diane lay down on the sofa, pulling a blanket over herself. Marcus settled into the armchair across from her, close enough that she could see him if she opened her eyes, far enough to maintain some semblance of propriety. "Marcus?" Diane's voice was already drowsy. "Yeah?" "Thank you for showing up." "For not," she yawned, "for not letting me be alone." "Any time," Marcus said, and was surprised to realize he meant it. He watched as her breathing evened out, her face finally relaxing into something like peace. The sun was beginning to rise, painting the Seattle skyline in shades of pink and gold. Marcus pulled out his phone and texted Mrs. Patterson that he'd be home before Zara woke up. As he sat there in the growing light, watching his boss, his cruel, brilliant, broken boss, sleep peacefully for the first time in who knew how long, Marcus wondered what the hell happened now. What he didn't know was that Diane's VP of Operations, Richard Moss, had been driving past the building at 3 a.m. and had seen Marcus enter. Didn't know that Richard had been looking for ammunition to use against Diane for months, waiting for his chance to take her position. Didn't know that this single act of kindness would spark rumors that would threaten both their careers. And he definitely didn't know that when Diane woke up a few hours later and found him still there, keeping his promise, something would shift in her that couldn't be shifted back. Marcus woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving quietly in the kitchen. For a disorienting moment, he forgot where he was. Then the events of the night came flooding back. The call, the tears, Diane's confession. He sat up in the armchair, his neck protesting the awkward angle he'd slept in. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, making him squint. His phone showed 7:42 a.m. Shit, Zara would be up by now. Diane appeared from the kitchen carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She'd changed into professional clothes, dark slacks and a silk blouse, and her hair was pulled back into its usual severe style. But she'd left it in its natural curly texture instead of straightening it, and her face was bare of makeup. It was a strange middle ground between the woman he'd found last night and the boss he'd known for 2 years. "You stayed," she said quietly, handing him a mug. "All night." "You asked me to," Marcus replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I keep my promises." Diane sat down on the sofa, cradling her own mug. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy with things unsaid. "I remember everything," Diane finally said, meeting his eyes. "I need you to know that. I'm not going to pretend last night didn't happen. I'm not going to walk into the office on Monday and act like I didn't break down and cry on your shoulder, metaphorically speaking, at 2 a.m. Marcus studied her, trying to reconcile this vulnerable woman with the one who'd made him redo presentations for sport. "Okay. I mean it, Marcus." Her voice was firm despite the vulnerability in her eyes. "What I told you about my mother, about the baby, about why I've been—" She swallowed hard. "About why I've been such a bitch to you. That was real, and I'm not taking it back in the daylight." "I didn't think you would." "Most people do," Diane said. "Most people share things in moments of weakness and then resent you for knowing them after." Marcus took a sip of his coffee. Perfect, exactly how he took it. She'd noticed. "I'm not most people." "No," Diane agreed, something soft entering her expression. "You're really not." Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson. "Baby girl is up and asking for you. No rush, but thought you'd want to know." Diane saw him check the message and stood immediately. "Zara, you need to get home. I'm sorry, I should have—" "It's fine," Marcus assured her, rising from the chair. "My neighbor's with her. She's okay. Still—" Diane walked him to the elevator, her arms wrapped around herself. "You left your daughter in the middle of the night because I called you crying. That's—" She shook her head. "That's more than I deserved." Marcus turned to face her as he reached the elevator. What happens now? Diane took a deep breath. Now, I stop being the person who made your life hell. Now, I start becoming someone my mother would recognize again. She paused. If you'll give me the chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, Marcus said, echoing his grandmother's words. Even terrible bosses who call you at 2 a.m.? Especially them. For the first time since he'd met her 2 years ago, Diane Rothwell smiled at him, a real smile that reached her eyes and transformed her entire face. It was like watching the sun come out from behind clouds. See you Monday, Marcus. As the elevator descended, Marcus leaned against the mirrored wall, exhaustion finally catching up with him. He had no idea what Monday would bring, no idea if Diane would actually follow through on her implied promise to change, no idea if this night would make things better or infinitely more complicated. What he did know was that he'd shown up when someone needed him, had sat with someone's pain without trying to fix it, had offered kindness without expecting anything in return. Grandma would be proud. His phone buzzed again. This time it was an email notification. From Diane. Sent 2 minutes ago. The subject line. Thank you. He opened it. Marcus, I'm not good at this, at vulnerability or gratitude or admitting when I'm wrong. But I need you to know that what you did tonight saved me in ways I don't think you understand. You had every reason to ignore my call, to let me suffer alone, to tell me exactly what I deserved to hear. Instead, you showed up. You stayed. You offered compassion when I'd shown you nothing but cruelty. I can't undo the past 2 years. I can't take back the late nights, the impossible deadlines, the cruel comments about your priorities. But I can promise you that starting Monday, things will be different. You deserve better than how I've treated you. You deserve to be seen for the incredible employee and person you are. I hope you can forgive me. More than that, I hope you'll give me the chance to prove that people can change. I'm in your debt. Diane Marcus read the email twice, then 3 times. The words felt genuine, scared even, like she was terrified he'd reject her olive branch. He typed back a quick reply. Diane, you don't owe me anything. We all have our battles, and grief makes us do things we're not proud of. I'm just glad you're not alone in it anymore. See you Monday. Marcus. As he drove home through Seattle's morning traffic, the city coming alive around him, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted, that a door had opened that couldn't be closed, that the woman who'd made his life hell for 2 years was about to become something else entirely. He just hoped they were both ready for whatever came next. When Marcus walked into his apartment at 8:30 a.m., he found Zara and Mrs. Patterson making pancakes in the kitchen. His daughter lit up when she saw him, running over in her princess pajamas to wrap her arms around his waist. "Daddy, where were you? Mrs. P said you had to help someone." Marcus knelt down, pulling Zara close and breathing in the coconut scent of her hair oil. "Someone needed help in the middle of the night, baby girl. I couldn't say no." Zara pulled back, studying his face with those too perceptive 9-year-old eyes. "Was it the dragon lady? From your work?" Marcus nearly choked. "Zara." "You," said she, "breathe fire sometimes," Zara reminded him innocently. "When you don't think I'm listening." Mrs. Patterson was trying very hard not to laugh. "Yeah," Marcus admitted, ruffling his daughter's curls. "It was her. But maybe she's not as much of a dragon as I thought." Zara considered this seriously. "Did you help her stop breathing fire?" "Something like that." "Good." Zara hugged him again. "Grandma D always said you had a superhero heart. That's why people need you." Marcus's throat tightened at the mention of his grandmother. "Yeah, baby. That's why." As he sat at the kitchen table eating pancakes with his daughter, listening to her chatter about her upcoming project on marine biology and the drama with her best friend Maya, Marcus thought about Diane's empty penthouse, about how her perfectly curated life had none of this warmth, this chaos, this love. His phone buzzed one more time. Another message from Diane. This one just said, "Enjoy your morning with Zara." And Marcus, "Thank you for reminding me what matters." Marcus smiled and put his phone away. Whatever complicated thing this was becoming, whatever consequences Monday would bring, he'd deal with it then. For now, he had pancakes to eat and a daughter to love. And somewhere across the city, a woman who'd called him crying at 2 a.m. was starting to remember who she used to be. Sometimes that's how healing begins. With a phone call in the dark, with someone showing up, with the terrifying vulnerability of being seen. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's the beginning of something neither person saw coming. Monday morning arrived with the kind of anxiety that made Marcus's coffee taste like ash. He'd spent the weekend oscillating between hope and dread, replaying Diane's words in his mind. Things will be different. But he'd heard promises before, from Simone, from his own father before he died, from people who meant well but couldn't follow through when reality set in. Still, something about the raw vulnerability in Diane's voice that night felt different, real in a way that polished promises never were. "You're doing that thing again," Zara said from across the breakfast table, her spoon hovering over her cereal, "where your face gets all thinky." "Thinky isn't a word, baby girl." "It should be." She tilted her head, studying him with those two observant eyes. "Are you nervous about seeing the Dragon Lady?" Marcus sighed, making a mental note to be more careful about what he said within earshot of his daughter. "Her name is Ms. Rothwell, and yeah, maybe a little nervous." "Because you saw her cry?" Marcus blinked. He hadn't told Zara the details of Friday night, just that someone from work had needed help. "What makes you say that?" Zara shrugged, her curls bouncing. "Maya's mom says people get weird after you see them cry, like they're embarrassed or something. But Maya's mom also says that's silly because crying just means you're human." She took a bite of cereal, then added, with the casual wisdom of childhood, "I think the Dragon Lady probably needed to remember she was human." Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought, his chest tight with love for his perceptive daughter. By the time Marcus arrived at Rothwell Strategic Solutions, his palms were sweating. The office occupied 3 floors of a downtown Seattle high-rise, all glass and chrome and aggressive modernity. He nodded to security, took the elevator to the 15th floor, and stepped into the familiar chaos of Monday morning. The office was already buzzing. His coworker Tamika looked up from her desk as he passed, her dark eyes curious. "Hey, Marcus. You see the email from Diane this morning?" Marcus's heart stuttered. "What email?" "Check your inbox. Sent at 6 a.m. Tamika lowered her voice. "She's calling an all-hands meeting at 9. People are freaking out. Last time she did that, she fired the entire marketing team." Marcus quickly pulled out his phone, opening his work email. There it was, sent to the entire company. "Team, I'm calling an all-hands meeting this morning at 9 a.m. in the main conference room. Attendance is mandatory. We need to discuss some changes to how we operate as a company, starting with how we treat each other and what we prioritize." Diane Rothwell, CEO. Marcus's mouth went dry. This could go 100 different ways, and not all of them good. He made his way to his desk in the operations department, trying to ignore the whispers and speculative glances from his colleagues. Word had apparently spread that something was happening, and, in the absence of information, people were filling in the blanks with increasingly wild theories. "I heard we're being acquired," someone whispered behind him. "No way. I heard Diane stepping down." "My money's on layoffs. Why else would she look so—" The conversation cut off abruptly. Marcus looked up to find Diane standing at the entrance to the operations department, and the entire room fell silent. She looked different from Friday night, but also different from the Diane of 2 weeks ago. She wore a navy pantsuit, perfectly tailored, but her hair was still in its natural curly texture, pulled back into a softer style. Her makeup was minimal. And when her eyes found Marcus across the room, something passed between them. Acknowledgement, gratitude, nerves. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying across the sudden quiet. "Could I see you in my office for a moment before the meeting?" Every head in the department swiveled to stare at him. Marcus felt heat crawl up his neck as he stood, following Diane through the maze of desks toward the executive offices. He could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on his back, the silent questions, the speculation. Diane's office was exactly what he'd expected. Minimalist, expensive, impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, much like her penthouse. A massive desk dominated the space, its surface clear except for a single framed photo Mark Uzi had never noticed before. He squinted as he got closer. It showed a younger Diane with an older black woman who shared her features. Her mother, Ruth. Diane closed the door behind them, and the noise of the office faded to a muted hum. "I put that photo out this morning," she said quietly, following his gaze. "I'd kept it in my drawer for 3 years. Couldn't bear to look at it. But this weekend I realized that hiding her away wasn't honoring her memory. It was just making me forget who I wanted to be." Marcus turned to face her. "Diane." "I'm terrified," she admitted before he could continue. "I'm about to stand in front of the entire company and basically admit that I've been a terrible leader and a worse human being, that I've let my personal pain poison this workplace." She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture Marcus now recognized as self-protection. "But I have to do it. I have to start somewhere." "What are you going to say?" Diane took a shaky breath. "The truth, or as much of it as I can. That I've been wrong, that I'm going to do better, that we're going to build a company culture that actually values people as people, not just as resources." She met his eyes. "And I'm going to start by publicly apologizing to you." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Diane, you don't have to." "I do," she said firmly. "You're not the only person I've mistreated, but you're the one I've been most consistently cruel to, and you're the one who showed me enough kindness to make me want to change." Her voice softened. "Let me do this, Marcus. Let me try to make it right." Before Marcus could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Diane's assistant, a young Asian woman named Lynn, poked her head in. "Ms. Rothwell, it's 8:55. People are gathering in the conference room." Diane nodded, squaring her shoulders. Marcus watched the transformation, the vulnerability tucking itself away, the CEO mask sliding into place. But it wasn't quite the same mask as before. This one had cracks in it, letting the light through. "Let's do this," she said. The main conference room was packed. Marcus estimated at least 80 people crammed into a space meant for 60, standing along the walls when the chairs filled up. The energy in the room was tense, uncertain. People whispered to each other, eyes darting toward Diane as she entered. Marcus found a spot near the back, next to Tamika, who immediately leaned over and whispered, "What the hell is going on? Why did she pull you into her office?" "I honestly don't know," Marcus replied, which wasn't entirely a lie. Diane stood at the front of the room, waiting for the whispers to die down. When silence finally fell, she didn't use the podium. Instead, she stood in front of it, hands clasped in front of her, looking smaller and more human than Marcus had ever seen her in a professional setting. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I know mandatory meetings at 9 a.m. on a Monday aren't anyone's favorite thing, so I'll try to be brief." She took a visible breath. "I want to talk to you about leadership, about what it means to build a company culture, and about failure." A ripple went through the room. This wasn't the typical Diane Rothwell speech. "I founded Rothwell Strategic Solutions 8 years ago with the vision of creating a consulting firm that actually solved problems instead of just billing hours. I wanted to build something my mother would be proud of." Diane's voice caught slightly on the word mother, but she pushed through. "And in terms of revenue and client satisfaction, we've succeeded. We're profitable. We're respected in the industry. By every measurable metric, we're a success." She paused, her eyes scanning the room. "But I've failed at something far more important. I've failed to create a workplace where people feel valued, where they feel safe bringing their whole selves to work, where they don't dread Monday mornings or check their phones at 2 a.m. with anxiety about what emergency their boss is going to throw at them." More whispers. Marcus saw several people exchanging glances. "I've been a terrible leader," Diane said bluntly. "I've prioritized results over people. I've created a culture of fear instead of excellence, and I've taken my personal pain and grief and used it as an excuse to be cruel, particularly to people who reminded me of what I'd lost." She turned, her eyes finding Marcus in the back of the room. "Marcus, Chen, could you come up here, please?" Marcus's heart stopped. Every eye in the room swiveled toward him. Tamika grabbed his arm, her expression somewhere between shock and concern. Marcus shook his head slightly. "I'm okay," and made his way through the crowd to the front of the room. When he reached Diane, she turned to face him directly. "Marcus, I owe you an apology," she said, her voice carrying through the silent room. "For 2 years, I have made your life at this company unnecessarily difficult. I've denied reasonable requests for schedule flexibility so you could be there for your daughter. I've given you impossible deadlines and then criticized you when you met them instead of exceeding them. I've made comments about your priorities that were not only unprofessional, but cruel." Marcus could feel the shock radiating through the room. This was unprecedented. Diane Rothwell didn't apologize. She certainly didn't do it publicly. "The truth is," Diane continued, her eyes glistening but her voice steady, "I resented you for having what I couldn't have. A family, a child who loves you, a life outside these walls that gives you purpose and joy. Instead of celebrating that or supporting you in balancing those responsibilities, I punished you for it. That was wrong. It was petty and small and everything my mother raised me not to be." She held out her hand. Marcus, still processing, took it automatically. "I'm sorry," Diane said, just to him now, though the room could still hear. "Truly, and I hope you'll give me the chance to prove that I can be better." Marcus looked at this woman who'd made him dread coming to work, who'd caused him stress and anxiety and sleepless nights. And he saw someone trying, really trying, to climb out of the pit her grief had dug. "I accept your apology," he said quietly. Then, because he knew how hard this must be for her, he added, "Thank you for your honesty." Diane's shoulders sagged with relief. She turned back to the room. "Effective immediately, we're implementing new policies," she announced. "Flexible working hours for parents and caregivers. A hard stop on emails and calls after 6 p.m., unless it's a genuine emergency. Required time off? If you're not using your vacation days, your manager will be scheduling them for you. And a complete overhaul of our performance review process to focus on sustainable excellence rather than burnout productivity." The room was buzzing now, the tension transforming into something else. Hope, maybe, or just shock. "I can't undo the past," Diane said, "but I can commit to doing better, to building the company my mother would want me to build, to treating each of you the way you deserve to be treated, as human beings with lives and families and needs beyond your job descriptions." She paused, then added with a slight smile, "Questions?" 50 hands shot up. An hour later, after Diane had fielded questions, concerns, and more than a few emotional testimonials from employees about their own struggles with work-life balance, Marcus found himself back at his desk, staring blankly at his computer screen. "Dude!" Tamika wheeled her chair over, her eyes wide. "What the actual hell just happened?" "I'm not entirely sure," Marcus admitted. "Did Diane Rothwell just publicly apologize to you? Did she just announce a complete culture overhaul? Did I slip into an alternate dimension this morning?" "All of the above?" Tamika leaned in, lowering her voice. "Okay, I need to know. What happened this weekend? Because people don't change like that overnight. Not people like Diane Rothwell." Marcus thought about Friday night, about Diane crying on her penthouse sofa, talking about her mother, about the baby she'd lost, about the vulnerability and pain that had been hiding beneath all that ice. "She's been through some stuff," he said carefully. "Sometimes people just need someone to remind them who they used to be." Tamika studied his face, then sat back with a knowing look. "You did something, didn't you? You helped her somehow." "I just showed up when she needed someone," Marcus said. "That's all." "That's not all," Tamika said softly. "That's everything." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, though he recognized it from Friday night. "Thank you for not making me do that alone." Marcus smiled and typed back. "You didn't need me up there. You did that all on your own." "Maybe. But it helped knowing you were in the room." Over the next week, Marcus watched in amazement as Diane systematically transformed Rothwell's strategic solutions from the inside out. It wasn't just talk. She hired an HR consultant to review every policy. She instituted no meeting Fridays so people could actually focus on their work. She started eating lunch in the common area instead of her office, making herself accessible in a way she'd never been before. And through it all, Marcus found himself increasingly aware of her, not as the terrifying boss who'd made his life hell, but as a woman trying desperately to become someone better, someone worthy of the mother she'd lost and the company she'd built. It was Thursday afternoon when everything shifted again. Marcus was reviewing a client proposal when his phone rang. Not a work call, his personal cell. The screen showed Zara's school. "This is Marcus Chen," he answered, his heart already racing. Schools didn't call in the middle of the afternoon unless something was wrong. "Mr. Chen, this is Principal Morrison. There's been an incident. Zara's fine, but we need you to come pick her up. There was a situation with another student and—" "I'll be right there," Marcus said, already grabbing his jacket. He was halfway to the elevator when he remembered. He had a client call in 15 minutes. An important one, with a potential contract worth 6 figures. He'd been preparing for weeks. Marcus hesitated, his hand on the elevator button, the old fear rising in his chest. If he left now, if he missed this call, what would happen? Would all of Diane's promises evaporate? Would he find himself back in the doghouse, his career stalling out because he'd chosen his daughter over work? "Go." Marcus turned to find Diane standing behind him, her expression soft. "The call with Henderson Industries," he started to explain. "I can maybe—" "I'll take the call," Diane said firmly. "Or we'll reschedule. Or we'll lose the account. I don't care. Your daughter needs you. Go." Marcus looked at her, seeing the absolute certainty in her face. She meant it. This wasn't a test. This wasn't a trap. When Zara gets in trouble at school, Diane Rothwell lets Marcus leave work immediately, a stark contrast to her former Ice Queen leadership style. Marcus rushes to find his daughter suspended for pushing a classmate who bullied her about Marcus's job and their modest lifestyle. Rather than anger, Marcus feels heartbroken that his daughter experienced such cruelty. He reassures Zara that they're rich in the ways that matter: love, family, and each other. Tyler's harsh words about Marcus being a loser cut deep, but Marcus uses the moment to teach his daughter about true worth beyond material wealth. Back home, Diane texts to check on Zara, marking a turning point in their relationship. Her genuine concern moves beyond professional courtesy into authentic care. When Marcus learns Diane plans to eat vending machine food while working late, he impulsively offers to bring her homemade pasta. This simple act of kindness opens a door neither expected. Over dinner in her office, Marcus and Diane share vulnerable truths about their pasts. Diane reveals how grief over losing her baby and her husband's abandonment turned her into someone unrecognizable. The cold, ruthless CEO everyone feared. Marcus shares his own journey through darkness after his wife Simone left, and how he had to forgive himself for perceived failures. Their connection deepens as they recognize they're helping each other heal. Diane learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. Marcus learning that not everyone leaves. The following weeks establish a new rhythm. They share regular lunches. Diane seeks Marcus's counsel on major decisions, and he brings weekly dinners when she works late. Colleagues notice the shift. Tamika warns Marcus about the dangerous territory they're entering, but he can't deny his growing feelings. The crisis erupts when Diane's ex-husband contests their divorce settlement, alleging the company's growth entitles him to more money. Worse, he claims Diane's recent behavior changes and inappropriate relationship with Marcus prove mental instability. Her lawyer warns that any impropriety could be weaponized against her. Before they can process this threat, VP Richard Moss storms in with devastating news. The Seattle Business Journal is running an exposé about their alleged workplace relationship, citing anonymous sources and framing Diane's positive changes as erratic behavior. An emergency board meeting is scheduled for Monday. The coordinated attack from her ex-husband and Richard becomes clear. In the face of potential ruin, Marcus confesses his feelings for Diane. Despite the terrible timing and complicated power dynamics, he refuses to pretend he doesn't care. Diane admits she feels the same, though it terrifies her. When she suggests Marcus distance himself to protect his reputation and Zara, he refuses categorically. They've both been abandoned by people who should have stayed. They won't do that to each other. They choose to stand together. Over the weekend, the story breaks, social media erupts, and Monday's board meeting looms. But Marcus knows he made the right choice. Some battles choose you. Some people are worth the risk. Whatever comes next, neither of them will face it alone.